I discovered their plan to sabotage and destroy my wife's funeral. So, I hired 25 security guards and 10 cameras ready. Subscribe to Storysphere to stay close. And don't forget to say hi from wherever you are in the world. I found the group chat by accident. My wife Simone had been gone for 3 days, and I was using her old iPad to look through our photos when the notification lit up the screen. My mother-in-law Patricia's name appeared with a message that made my blood freeze. "Remember, we make our move at the funeral. Malcolm won't know what hit him." I stared at those words, my hands trembling as I opened the thread. There were 12 people in this chat, all family members I'd known for the 8 years Simone and I were married. My sister-in-law Rachel had written, "He thinks he's so perfect. Wait until we expose what he really is." I scrolled up, watching 3 weeks of messages unfold before my eyes. They'd been planning this since before Simone died. My wife had ovarian cancer, stage 4, and these people had spent her final days plotting against me instead of supporting her. But what they didn't know was that I was ready, and what happened next would change everything. The messages detailed everything. They planned to interrupt the service, accuse me of abuse, claim I'd isolated Simone from her family, even suggest I'd somehow contributed to her death by denying her proper care. Deshawn, Simone's brother, had written, "The life insurance is $200,000. He doesn't deserve a dime." I felt sick. Not because they wanted the money. I'd give every penny to have Simone back, but because they were willing to desecrate her memory to get it. These people were supposed to love her. Instead, they saw her death as an opportunity. I took screenshots of everything, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then I made a decision that would change everything. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the woman I'd loved for 8 years, remembering how she'd warned me. 6 months before her diagnosis, Simone had sat me down at our kitchen table, her dark eyes serious. "Baby, I need you to understand something about my family," she'd said, holding my hands. "They're not like yours. There's always an angle, always a scheme. My mama's been like that since I was little." I dismissed it then. Thought she was being harsh. Now, lying alone in our bed, I remembered other moments. How Patricia had asked me 4 times about our finances during Simone's illness. How Rachel had tried to convince Simone to make her the beneficiary on her savings account. How Deshawn had suggested I take out a second mortgage to pay for experimental treatments, even though our insurance covered everything. Simone had seen through all of it. "They'll come after you when I'm gone," she'd whispered one night in hospice, her voice weak but certain. "Promise me you'll protect yourself." I'd promised, but I hadn't really believed her. The Simone I met in college had been so different from her family. She'd put herself through Howard University, working 3 jobs, refusing her mother's toxic money that always came with strings attached. She'd been brilliant, kind, fierce. She'd chosen me when her family said I wasn't good enough, wasn't ambitious enough, didn't make enough money. Patricia had actually laughed at our wedding when Simone said her vows. That should have told me everything. Morning came without rest. I made coffee and started going through old text messages, emails, anything that might help me understand. What I found shattered me. 2 years ago, Rachel had sent Simone an email accusing her of thinking she was better than the family because we bought a house in a different neighborhood. Last year, Patricia had told Simone's and that I was probably cheating because I worked late sometimes. Deshawn had spread rumors at a family reunion that we were in financial trouble, which wasn't true. But the worst was a voice message from 8 months ago. Patricia's voice dripped with venom. "You're dying, Simone, and you're going to leave everything to that man. He didn't come from nothing. He doesn't understand what it's like to struggle like we have. That money should stay in the family. Blood over everything, baby girl." Blood over everything. Simone had saved it. She'd saved everything. In a folder on her computer labeled, "Just in case," I found documented proof of every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to turn her against me. There were screenshots of Patricia asking Simone for money, then telling other family members Simone had abandoned them. Messages from Rachel trying to borrow $15,000 for a business opportunity that Simone knew was a scam. Even a recording of Deshawn admitting he'd lied to their grandmother about me refusing to let Simone visit her. She'd been building a case, protecting me from beyond the grave. I called my best friend Marcus at 6 a.m. "I need help," I said, and told him everything. Marcus, an attorney, listened in silence until I finished. "Malcolm, man, I'm sorry, but you're sitting on gold here. They're planning to commit fraud, defamation, maybe even theft if they try to contest the insurance payout. We can stop this." We met at his office by 8. I brought the iPad, the screenshots, Simone's documentation. Marcus brought his partner, a woman named Kesha, who specialized in estate law. "This is actually criminal," Kesha said, scrolling through the messages. "The conspiracy to defame you at the funeral, the planned interruption of a memorial service, the false allegations, you could press charges." But I didn't want revenge. I wanted Simone to rest in peace. "What if," Marcus said slowly, "we let them think they're going to succeed, but we're ready for them?" That's when we hatched the plan. 25 security guards, all licensed and bonded. 10 security cameras positioned throughout the funeral home with live feeds to a monitoring station. A court stenographer to document everything. 2 off-duty police officers, and something else, something they'd never expect. "We're going to give them enough rope to hang themselves," Marcus said. "And we're going to make sure Simone's funeral is beautiful despite them." I nodded, feeling something I hadn't felt since Simone died. Determination. The funeral was in 4 days. We had to move fast. Marcus called in favors from his security connections. Kesha contacted a client who owned a private security firm specializing in event protection. By noon, we had our team. The head of security was a man named James, 6'5", former Marine with eyes that missed nothing. "I've done celebrity funerals, political events, you name it," he told me in his office. "But I've never done one where the family's the threat. That's a new level of low." I showed him the messages. His jaw tightened. "My sister died last year. If someone had tried to disrespect her funeral, I don't know what I would have done. We'll make sure your wife rests in peace, brother." We planned every detail. Guards would be stationed at every entrance. 2 would be positioned near the casket at all times. The cameras would be hidden but comprehensive. Any disruption would be documented, handled, and if necessary, prosecuted. But we had to be smart. Patricia and her crew couldn't know we knew. "Let them think they have the element of surprise," James said. "That's when people make mistakes." I went home and did something that nearly broke me. I called Patricia to finalize funeral arrangements. "Malcolm, baby," she cooed, her voice fake sweet. "We're all just devastated. Simone was everything to us." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "I know. Thank you for helping with the arrangements." The night before the funeral, I stood in our bedroom holding Simone's favorite dress, the one she'd wanted to be buried in. It was emerald green. "The color of hope," she'd always said. I remembered her wearing it to my company's Christmas party 3 years ago. How she danced with me in our living room before we left. How she'd laughed when I'd stepped on her toes. "I'm going to make sure tomorrow is perfect for you," I whispered to the empty room. My phone buzzed. "Marcus. Final walkthrough at the funeral home in an hour. You ready?" I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready. The funeral home looked transformed when I arrived. James and his team were positioning cameras with military precision. The funeral director, Mrs. Martin, a dignified woman in her 60s, pulled me aside. "Mr. Williams, I want you to know, in 30 years, I've never seen such preparation. But I also want you to know that your wife's service will be beautiful. Whatever happens, she'll be honored." The main chapel held 200 people. White roses everywhere. Simone's favorite. Photos of her life displayed on screens. A program I'd spent days perfecting with her best friend Tamika. Everything was ready. Jane showed me the monitoring room. 10 screens displayed every angle of the chapel, the entrance, the parking lot, even the bathrooms. "They won't get within 10 feet of that casket without us knowing," he promised. The funeral was at 2. By 1:30, people were arriving. I stood in the family room watching the monitors as guests filed in. Simone's college friends. My family, who'd flown in from Atlanta. Her coworkers from the hospital where she'd been a nurse. Then Patricia arrived, wearing black but somehow making it look like a power suit. Rachel and Deshawn flanked her like soldiers. I watched them scan the room, noting the guards positioned discreetly along the walls. Patricia's face tightened. She whispered something to Deshawn, who shook his head. They hadn't expected security, but they didn't know the half of it. More family members filtered in, and I recognized faces from the group chat. 12 conspirators, all playing their roles, hugging people, crying crocodile tears. My cousin Jamal came to get me. "It's time, Malcolm." I took a deep breath and walked into the chapel. The moment I saw Simone's casket, everything else fell away. She looked peaceful, beautiful, finally free from pain. I'd kept my promise about the dress. I approached slowly, placed my hand on the polished wood, and felt tears stream down my face. This was goodbye. This was real. Behind me, I heard Patricia's voice. Too loud, too theatrical. "My baby! They took my baby from me!" It had begun. I turned to see her approaching the casket, arms outstretched. Rachel and Deshawn creating a scene behind her. "My daughter!" Patricia wailed, pushing past guests to reach the casket. 2 security guards stepped forward smoothly, blocking her path without touching her. "Please take your seat," James said quietly but firmly. Patricia's face contorted with rage. "That's my daughter. How dare you tell me? The family has assigned seating," James interrupted, gesturing to the front row. "You're welcome to sit and pay your respects during the service." I watched Patricia's calculation. She'd planned to make a scene at the casket to establish dominance. The guards had neutralized that. She glared at me, and I met her eyes steadily. Let her wonder. The service began. Pastor Williams, who'd known Simone since childhood, spoke beautifully about her kindness, her strength, her faith. Tamika read a poem that left everyone in tears. My brother gave a eulogy about how Simone had welcomed him into our family. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium with a folder Marcus had prepared. "Simone was the love of my life," I began, my voice shaking but steady. "She was brilliant, compassionate, and fiercely protective of the people she loved." I talked about our first date, our wedding, the life we'd built. Then I paused. "Simone also knew that some people see death as an opportunity rather than a loss. She prepared me for that." Patricia shifted in her seat. I continued. "She taught me that the best way to honor someone's memory is to protect it." I'd barely finished speaking when Rachel stood up. "Can I say something?" she asked, her voice trembling with fake emotion. Pastor Williams looked at me. I nodded slightly. We'd anticipated this. Rachel walked to the front, dabbing her eyes. "I just want everyone to know the truth about my sister's last days," she began. Here we go. Simone was isolated from her family. Malcolm here wouldn't let us visit. He controlled her medication, her phone, everything. We tried to help her, but he kept us away. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People who didn't know the truth looked at me with suspicion. My hands clenched, but I stayed seated. Rachel warmed to her performance. She called me 2 weeks before she died, begging me to help her. She said she was afraid that Malcolm was making decisions without consulting her. But by then it was too late. That was the lie that broke me. I started to stand, but Marcus grabbed my arm. "Let her finish," he whispered. "Let them all finish." Deshawn stood next. "I think we deserve to know about the life insurance. How much is it, Malcolm? $200,000? $300,000? And you won't even let Mama have her daughter's jewelry." The chapel erupted in murmurs. Patricia stood, playing her part perfectly. "My daughter's personal effects belong to her family. He's keeping everything, erasing her from our lives." This was their plan. Discredit me publicly, make me look like a monster, then contest the will and the insurance. I stood slowly, and James gave a subtle nod to his team. Every guard moved into position. Every camera focused. The stenographer's fingers flew across her machine. "Are you finished?" I asked quietly. Patricia's eyes glittered with triumph. "We're just getting started." "Actually," Marcus said, standing and moving to the front. "You're finished, all of you." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. "I'm Marcus White, Mr. Williams's attorney. What you've just done constitutes defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conspiracy to commit fraud." The color drained from Patricia's face. Marcus continued, "We have documentation of your group chat planning this disruption. We have messages discussing how to expose Malcolm and claim the insurance money. We have 3 weeks of conspiracy evidence." He pressed a button on his phone, and the chapel screens, which had been showing photos of Simone, switched to screenshots of the group chat. The entire congregation read Patricia's words. "We make our move at the funeral." Rachel's. "Wait until we expose what he really is." Deshawn's. "He doesn't deserve a dime." The chapel fell silent. People turned to stare at Patricia, at Rachel, at Deshawn, at all 12 conspirators. Their faces showed horror, shame, panic. "But what you don't know," Marcus continued, "is that Simone knew. She knew exactly what you were. She documented everything." The screens changed again. Simone's voice filled the chapel, the recording of Patricia's. "Blood over everything." Message. "My wife," I said, my voice breaking but strong, "spent her final months protecting me from you. Not because I asked her to. Not because she was vindictive. But because she knew. She always knew what you were capable of." The screen showed more evidence. Patricia asking Simone for money while telling others she'd been abandoned. Rachel's scam requests. Deshawn's lies. Every betrayal documented and dated. "Simone left me a letter," I continued, pulling it from my jacket. "She wrote it 2 weeks before she died. She asked me to read it only if you did exactly what she predicted you'd do." I unfolded the paper, my hand shaking. "My dearest Malcolm," I read, "if you're reading this, it means my family has tried to hurt you at my funeral. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm sorry you have to deal with them without me. But I want everyone to know the truth." The chapel was silent except for my voice reading Simone's words. She detailed every manipulation, every lie, every attempt to turn her against me. She explained how she refused to leave them anything in her will because she wanted it all to go to me. Her husband, her partner, her love. "Malcolm gave me 8 years of pure happiness," I read, tears streaming down my face. He held my hand through every chemo session. He slept in a hospital chair for weeks. He loved me when I was bald and sick and scared. My family sees $signs. Malcolm only ever saw me. The screens went dark. I folded Simone's letter and looked directly at Patricia. You turned my wife's funeral into a spectacle. You tried to destroy her memory for money. James! The head of security stepped forward. Mrs. Jackson, Ms. Jackson, Mr. Jackson, and the 10 others in your group chat, you need to leave now. Patricia found her voice. You can't throw us out. This is a public. It's a private service. Mrs. Martin interrupted coldly. And you're trespassing. Leave, or I'll have you arrested. The 12 conspirators were escorted out by security, past 200 people who now knew the truth. Some guests stood and applauded. Others just shook their heads in disgust. After they were gone, Pastor Williams approached the podium. Let us, he said quietly, honor Simone properly, with love, with dignity, with the respect she deserved in life and in death. The service continued beautifully. People shared memories of Simone's kindness. Her best friends sang her favorite hymn. We celebrated her life instead of being destroyed by Patricia's greed. At the cemetery, under clear skies, I placed a single white rose on her casket. We did it, baby, I whispered. You rest now. I've got this. 2 days later, Marcus called. Patricia's filed a lawsuit contesting the will. So have Rachel and Deshawn. They're claiming undue influence, that you manipulated Simone. I should have been angry. Instead, I laughed. Do they not understand we have everything documented? The lawsuit was dismissed in 43 days. The judge reviewed our evidence and Patricia's claims and literally said, This is one of the most frivolous suits I've ever seen. Motion denied with prejudice. Patricia, Rachel, and Deshawn were ordered to pay my legal fees, $35,000. They never paid. I didn't care. The insurance money came through. I donated half to the Cancer Research Center where Simone received treatment. The other half I'm using to fund nursing scholarships in her name. Simone always said the world needed more nurses who actually cared. 6 months later, I'm healing. Not healed. I don't know if that's possible, but healing. I volunteer at the cancer center once a week. I keep photos of Simone everywhere. I talk to her every morning over coffee. Patricia sent a letter last week saying she wanted to reconcile. I burned it. Some bridges should stay burned. Tamika came over yesterday and found me going through old photos. She'd be proud of you, she said. The way you protected her, the scholarship fund, all of it. I nodded, not trusting my voice. You know what the wildest part is? Tamika continued. They thought they could use her death against you. But Simone's love was stronger than their hate. Even Dawn, she protected you. That night, I updated my will. Everything goes to the scholarship fund. No family drama, no fighting, just Simone's legacy helping people. If you believe everyone deserves to rest in peace without their memory being desecrated for money, hit that subscribe button on Storysphere. Only manipulators and greedy, heartless people who would sabotage a funeral won't subscribe. Comment. Rest in peace. If you stand against people like Patricia, who see tragedy as opportunity, because everyone deserves better than having their death turned into a scheme. Everyone deserves what Simone and I fought for: love, dignity, and peace.